Right, I've got this article, Jim Kelly, Sunday Times, 27th of the 2nd, 2005. An independent review of the case completed in 2001 concluded Fremantle Council was at fault. The finding was backed by a state government standing committee review which said the council had acted unfairly by using its full resources to defend its actions and to persecute a citizen, an individual citizen. Committee Chairman Barry House urged the council to settle the dispute and consider paying Mr Horst compensation. Mr Horst, who is experiencing ill health after years of fighting the legal system, claims he cannot get a lawyer to represent him. Well, all the lawyers have just taken his money and not helped at all anyway. Here's an article in the West Australian, Monday the 15th January 1996. Australia, most corrupt nation.
In the English-speaking world.
Well, I was born in Western Australia. I love my country. I love Australia. And the point is, the reason why I talk about corruption is because I don't want Australia to be a corrupt country. And it's better to have somebody who's interested in politics we're willing to talk about corruption. There's people in the parliament who are not willing to talk about corruption, who are acting in a corrupt manner. International corruption fighters regard Australia as the most corrupt country in the English-speaking world, according to a retired Hong Kong investigator living in WA. He's a former senior investigator with the Hong Kong Independent Commission Against Corruption, says he has been amazed at how Australians accept dishonesty by public officers and the police. I've got nothing against the police really, so... He made submissions recently to the Commission on Government's reviews of the controversial WA Official Corruption Commission and to the WA Upper House Committee investigating allegations against this man was Judge David Charters, appointed to the District Court as a judge.
He was the first judge on my case.
Yeah.
And didn't understand it.
Yeah. Where's he from?
I think he came from Kenya, wasn't he?
He lived in Kenya before immigrating to West Australia with his wife and 2 children in 1964.
He was a policeman.
And he was a policeman and was appointed as a judge. Well, was he a lawyer? How's that possible? I don't know how that's possible, but anyway, it's not even West Australian. That's the other thing. Politicians and judges should be born in Western Australia or in Australia, Australian born. People who have
well, not necessarily born, but educated.
Well, and citizenship of Australia and West Australia for a long time.
They should be
long-term citizens, right?
They should be educated.
Educated and long-term citizens. Yeah, well, look what they're doing to the teaching profession. That's trying to destroy the education system. So.
George Cash and Mrs. Edwards instigated all the action against me, including the jailing.
Okay.
George Cash was the Minister for Land. Mrs. Edwards was the Attorney General in the Richard Court government.
That's right.
And that's when it all started.
So Mr. Cash has got a lot to answer for. So has
Mrs.
General Edwards. So has
Robert Koch.
Now this letter's dated the 20th of February 1995. This is while Mr. Horst was in jail. The 91 days he was in jail. This is in the middle period of his jailing. And this letter's been written by George Cash. At the time was Minister for Lands.
By the way, that letter was addressed to Mr. Eilert.
Mr. Eilert, who was the man.
And it came in my possession when I received my files back from Jim McGinty, who was the Shadow Attorney General in Fremantle. Somebody dumped all the documents outside my house, so anybody could have stolen them. Yeah. They were dumped outside my house, and this was in my file, addressed to the criminals that were building on my land.
Yeah, so Mr. Cash wrote to Mr. Eilert, who is the man responsible for this, really, and who else, and the other man, the builder as well.
Joseph Conway.
Is the owner.
Conway. Yeah.
And the builder.
Conway's the builder and Eilert was the owner. Okay,
so Eilert was the one who deliberately built a house to block Mr. Horst's view.
In conspiracy with the builder.
Yeah, well,
They were partners.
they built the building too high against the government-approved documents,
That's
which
right.
said it had to be
Existing ground level.
lower,
Existing ground level to be used.
existing ground, and they dumped all the sand and all that.
That's right.
So Mr. Cash wrote to him and helped him.
That's right.
Actually helped him while they had already thrown Mr. De Horst in jail. Okay, there's a transfer that occurred, and it says, we, Jan to Horst, the registered proprietor of Lot 1 and Strata Plan number, Ashman Holdings Proprietary Limited and Family Holdings, the registered properties proprietors of Lot 2 and Westpac Banking Corporation as mortgagee of mortgage number on Lot 2 of Strata Plan. It's got all these numbers. Hereby consent to the proposed allocation of unit entitlement as set out in the application for re-subdivision. So they used his name, and Mr. Horst is claiming that they did this while he's in jail.
Yeah, but my signature is not on there.
Yeah, of course, it's
So
got.
if I consent, that should have my signature.
That's right, but the signature is register of the district court, so it's done by the district court, but the document says it uses Mr. Horst's name
It's fraud.
to transfer this property, and it says, we, Jan de Horst, hereby consent to the proposed allocation of unit entitlement, but it's been signed by the court, not by him. And you're claiming that this is being done to you while you're in jail?
Yeah, it's fraud.
And there's another document there, I, Jan de Horst, the registered proprietor of Lot 1, Strata Plan, hereby consent to the subdivision of Lot 2, but it was signed by the district court, so it's not signed by him. There's no signature. He did not consent to anything. He has not signed these documents, and they used his name. And he's claiming that it was done while he was in prison. Okay. This is the date, the 13th of April 1995, so you served a term of 91 days. And this was the day that they effected the transfer of this duplicate title before Hammond, Judge Hammond, and the prosecuting lawyer again is R.J. McCormack, and Mr. M. Hardy for the defendant, and Mr. Richard Cock for the Commissioner. Robert Cock for the Commissioner of Titles.
He acted on behalf of the DOLA.
So he helped them do this? Yeah.
Yes, he got instructed, Crown Law, Robert Cock was a Crown Law solicitor. Robert Cock is a Crown Law solicitor. He got instructions from George Cash, Minister of Lands. He got instructions from Mrs. Edwards, the Attorney General, to act on behalf of Islet and on behalf of DOLA, which is now Landgate, to get the titles through the court. Fake titles and fake transfers. He was a Crown Law solicitor.
That's right, so he...
Who later became the DPP, Director of Public Prosecution.
Director of Public Prosecution. And now he's a...
Who then gets the police report and all the other reports that vindicated me, and he refused to act on it. He acted on behalf of the criminals, but he will not act on behalf of the victim.
And he didn't disclose his conflict of interest.
Exactly.
And now he's a personal advisor to...
He was the Crown Law solicitor. He then became the DPP. He then became the Premier Barnett's advisor, legal advisor, and he is now in charge of the prison release system.
So
people that he put in jail, he is now in charge of their release.
Yeah, so...
This man's got a lot to answer for, Robert Cock.
Yeah.
No. He's a Crown Law solicitor, DPP, and he's not a lawyer. He's not my lawyer.
No, so Robert Cock did everything he can in his position to persecute Mr. De Horst. There's no question about that.
Well, look at the fake titles and the fake transfers.
And he was involved in the transfer of these documents, which were forged and which were not signed by Mr. De Horst, and he was involved in that. So, as a Commissioner for Titles. at the time, and this date was the date you were released, but you weren't in this hearing. You were not in his hearing.
No.
And
They were not acting on behalf of me.
No.
They were acting on behalf of ILAT,
yeah,
the government,
yeah,
Minister for Land, George Cash, Mrs. Edwards, and they were acting on behalf of DOLA, Land Administration, to get the fake titles, which I refused to surrender.
that's right. And you were in jail for 91 days, and on this
91 days.
on this last day, they did this on this last day, and this is the day you were released, but you weren't in the hearing, so they were just,
No, I think it would have been done prior to that, I think.
yeah.
Because,
Well, it's the 13th of April, so we're not sure it's the exact release date. But you weren't here anyway. And any certificate of title issued by the Register of Titles at the direction of the Commission of Titles pursuant to Section 70, they did it under the Transfer of Land Act, Section 77 of the Transfer of Land Act.
76 and 77.
Sections 76 and 77, so they transferred this land without him being there, and they forged the documents. They forged the documents, and it's been signed by the district court, but it says he consents, and he didn't consent, he didn't sign it, he wasn't even there in the hearing, he was in jail. So that's how criminal this is. As a consequence of the failure of the defendant to deliver duplicate certificate of title, pursuant to the order of Justice White, that's the 5th judge named, Justice White,
Supreme Court.
of the Supreme Court dated the 13th of April 1995, be delivered to the Registrar of the District Court and be retained by him pending any further order of this court. The parties do have liberty to apply. And 3, the defendant to pay the plaintiff's costs of today and all reserve costs and costs of all other appearances on the plaintiff's contempt application to date. So not only did they unlawfully jail him, they stole his land by illegally transferring it and lying and forging in documents. Then they ordered economic costs against him. How cruel are our judges? Human judges who are engaged in an enormous amount of cruelty against our citizens.
Yeah, all that cost came out of the $44,000, that last instalment, which I never received. It was paid into the court, and the court gave it to ILAT's lawyers.
And they stole all your money, and they didn't even pay him all the money for the original
That's right.
land sale.
I got 66,000, that's all,
$66,000.
for a block of land. With the best
In
ocean
Beacons-
views, the best ocean views in Fremantle. $66,000, that's all I received. And all that money went to my lawyers.
And that man's gone to the United Kingdom now, hasn't he?
He now lives in England,
And he actually,
Mr. Bruce Jonathan Islet.
Bruce Jonathan Islet, and he tried to get another man to have you jailed a second time, didn't
That's
he?
right.
To steal
right.
this house, to steal this property.
Yeah.
But he was prosecuted for that, wasn't he? He was put before a court. Now there's a police report and there's a parliamentary inquiry. Fremantle Detectives Inquiry report about this whole situation. Detective Sergeant Frank Troy, Trevor Frank Troy, thank you Mr. Troy for writing this report. And the interesting thing is this detective wrote a very good report, but when the copy was given to you,
Prima facie report.
where did you get this report from?
From the Freedom of Information.
From who?
Freedom of Information,
Yeah,
the
but-
police.
You got this from the police?
Freedom of Information. I had to pay $30 to get it. And it's all black and
And they blacked out all the names of the people involved in doing this to him. You see? They blacked out the names. Look at that. All his supporters and all the judges and all the lawyers and everything. So the police wrote a report, but they blacked out all the names. And who else has got a copy of this report?
Everybody.
Everyone,
Fremantle Council, everybody.
Fremantle
got a copy.
Council, the DPP.
But they got a clean copy.
Yeah, of course they did. So they get a copy, with all the names in it, but Mr. Horst doesn't get the names, you know. Anyway, we've got that, and there is a court inquiry, the Lush report, the Lush parliamentary inquiry into local government.
You already
That
got
one?
that. You got that. No, that's a standing committee.
That's the standing committee inquiry into this.
No, that's just the one from here, from the book. Just a
Alright,
copy.
let's look. Alright, I want to read out the names of the committee members,
Okay.
the politicians who engaged this committee report. Standing Committee on Public Administration and Finance. Barry House, Chairman. Ed Dermer, Deputy Chairman. These are all politicians in the West Australian Parliament at the time. This is in 2002. Murray Criddle, John Fisher, Dee Margetts, Ken Travers, Sue Ellery. Some of these people retired. Dee Margetts was one of my economics teachers when I was in high school. Okay, so they wrote this report, which pretty much, what's the summary of that?
Yeah, it's the same as the...
And what did they have to say, generally speaking?
Huh?
Did that vindicate you, that report?
Oh, yes, yeah.
It vindicated you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That you were innocent? That you were innocent in this process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said the council should...
So that report alone is evidence that Mr. Horst should have received economic damages by now and compensation, because it's a parliamentary report and he hasn't received any compensation. He's got commissioned by the Supreme Court to sue the government, but the Attorney General should provide you with damages and compensation, because that's what you've suffered so much because of their corruption. Okay, there's letters by well, that's
Richard.
media, Richard Udding, media.
ABC.
Letters by various politicians.
That's the High Court.
This is a High Court letter from the High Court of Australia.
Justice Kirby.
Justice Kirby. I'm afraid that judicial convention prevents me becoming involved in your case. In this country, judges cannot act as an ombudsman. They are confined to dealing with cases that come before them properly in court. There are procedures for appeal and challenge in such cases such as yours. There's only such proceedings that I can express. There's a letter from Barbara Scott. An approach has been made on your behalf to the Attorney General for his consideration of instigating a judicial inquiry into your case. That was in 1997.
That was put in the shredder.
That was in the shredder, was it? Yeah.
Parliament was prorogued.
They didn't do anything about it.
That's a criminal island.
Okay, he tried to then, with another man, steal Mr. De Horst's own property, the property, the house that he lives in.
They tried to jail me for a second time.
They tried to jail him for a second time. This goes on and on and on.
This is some of the damage, plus another 2,000 for all the windows.
They smashed his windows and in his house
And damaged all the curtains.
damaged all the curtains, okay?
$5,000 damage. He could fine $2,000 in the court, Mr. Eilert.
And the man responsible was the house that's blocking his view. And he's gone to the United Kingdom now. That's a letter from Mrs. Scott. This is a letter...
This is from Eilert. He wrote that letter to McGinty.
Why are you in jail?
Complaining. Yeah, he was complaining about Crown law.
And why you were in jail?
Well, I was in jail.
And he also wrote to a politician. And then he wrote a letter to Mr. McGinty, Jim McGinty, that's Ireland.
Yeah, have a look here. That's what Crown law told him.
Crown law told him that she did not think we were entitled
Mrs.
to
Whedon, Crown law.
Mrs. Whedon, the
Crown law solicitor, yes.
said that they did not think that this is the Islets, Bruce Islet, was not entitled to receive the title to the land because we have not completed the building or complied with the building.
Well,
Yeah?
that's the same letter.
So they didn't comply with the building height restriction. That's half the problem. And the government let them do it.
And they didn't finish it because the title was supposed to be given to them when the building is finished.
Yeah.
But it must conform with planning approval and the strata height, which it didn't.
But it was a retrospective. Wasn't it retrospective?
What?
It was retrospectively done, wasn't it?
Well, they gave them retrospective planning approval without my consent.
Okay.
Not
This is
for them.
from the Professor, the Honourable David K. Malcolm.
He was on my case in the Supreme Court.
4th of June 2008. He was on your side.
David Malcolm was one of the 3 judges at the Supreme Court who supported my case.
Yeah.
And
But the other 2 didn't.
And when I took all the documents to him, the police report, local government inquiry report, ombudsman's report, etc. He wrote me this letter.
And in the letter he said is now teaching at Notre Dame University in the law department.
He's professor of law now.
He's in charge of that law department. Very good university, by the way. As a retired judge, I'm disqualified from giving legal advice or assistance. I note the letter from Detective Sergeant Troy, that's that report that was produced.
Police report
by Fremantle Detective, dated the 5th of July 2004, and from my reading of the correspondence there does not appear, from my reading of the correspondence there does appear that you are a victim of an injustice for which I can only express my great regret and wish you well in your endeavour to obtain justice. And that's from David K. Malcolm. So he's probably one of the few good judges, I would say, in this state. And the other two judges, who were they?
I think it was Murray and White.
Judge Murray and Judge White. So they went
and
against...
David Malcolm. There were two against one.
They went against you, but this man supported you.
Yes, but David Malcolm was the more qualified one. He was the Chief Justice.
He was the Chief Justice.
And prior to that, for 7 years, he was the chairman of the local government appeal tribunal.
So he could have done...
So he knew exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But the other two judges went against him.
Yeah. So he could have probably helped you, probably a bit more.
He did help me in the court,
He did help you.
from the transcripts.
But he could have probably
He could have
written
done
to some
more.
of the politicians.
That's why he
and
said. That's why he says here, I regret. I can only express my great regret.
Yeah.
Now, Justice Kirby did the same recently in the paper regarding the Millard case. He said, I regret that I have not acted earlier. And now I'm getting the same from Professor David Malcolm,
Yeah.
who was on my case.
Yeah. You see, the thing is, these judges too, human judges, are going to be judged for the type of judgments they make and the justice. So the whole system doesn't work because you've got human judges, one or two, who are just like have the power to destroy our citizens. It's not justice. It's actually control and oppression. It is. It's control and oppression.
My argument is, when you go to a lawyer, you get a proper lawyer that is relevant to your case, like a property lawyer, right? Now, when you're dealing with the courts, there should also be property judges, not a criminal judge who deals with murder cases. You've got to have a proper judge who understands local government, and in my case, statute law of parliament.
That's right.
And this Judge Charters didn't have a clue. Have a clue. But when the first judge gets it wrong, all the other judges copy. They copycat one another.
Yeah, because they just cover for each other.
Yes, they should all be individually, properly investigated.
Yeah, well, my view on the judicial system is that we don't have one judge doing it or one magistrate doing it. That's wrong. That people go to some sort of mediation centre, and that it's before a panel of people. That's the whole... In the Constitution, you can't be in prison for an indictable offence without a jury, the right to a jury. So every citizen has a right to a jury, but they don't apply that in our courts. This wasn't applied in the case of Mr. Horst. It wasn't before a jury of his peers or of people. So it should be in a setting where there's a panel of people, not just one person, but it should be done in we should have mediation centres, not courts necessarily, in a sense. They don't provide justice for people at all.
Now this is the result of all the reports going to Robert Koch, who then became the DPP.
Yeah, that's right. This is an article by a newspaper, the journalist is Warren Haitley. The Department of Public Prosecutions has recommended no legal action be taken in the long-running Yun to Horst affair. Superintendent John Bradham from the South Metropolitan Police said the investigation had not uncovered sufficient evidence to support the charges being laid. So, which charges against 16-year dispute between Fremantle Council and the Beaconsfield resident was the subject of a police investigation earlier this year by Trevor Troy, formerly of Fremantle Detectives. Mr. Horst alleged council staff at the time had acted improperly during the subdivision and clearing of his Ocean View property in 1989. Earlier this year, the Herald reported Detective Sergeant Troy's comments that there seemed to be a prima facie case to answer regarding some of Mr. De Horst's claims. Mr. Bradham said Mr. De Horst and Fremantle Council were apprised of the situation, but Fremantle Council CEO Graham McKenzie said he'd received no notice and wasn't aware of the DPP's position. So, the Department of Public Prosecutions has recommended no legal action be taken against these corrupt people.
Because Robert Koch had a serious conflict of interest.
Because it was Robert Koch that was in charge of, he was the...
He is involved with the fake titles and the fake transfers.
But he was
therefore he had a conflict of interest, that's the reason why he did not want to proceed with this, the charges.
He was the Director of Public Prosecutions at the time, and he did not. He was involved, he is totally corrupt, and he should be jailed.
Exactly.
Under the criminal code, if you look at corruption laws under the criminal code, 7 years imprisonment for corrupt officials, government officials. How corrupt can you get? He should be jailed. There's a few other people who should be jailed over this.
Many. That's why I got the coffin. I need a bigger coffin on the car.
Who do you think needs to be prosecuted over this?
Many people. Four employees from the Fremantle Council who have all resigned. You know, they were told or asked to take an early retirement because nobody ever gets the sack when you work for government. Those 4 people should be charged. Eilert and Conway should be charged. And there are a few other people, like Robert Koch's got a lot to answer for.
Yeah. What about Hammond?
Well, he was involved with the fake titles. No, he was a judge.
He was a judge, and
Hammond
he was
a
involved.
judge. Which Hammond you're talking about? What I keep saying, there should be a full and open, independent judicial inquiry, because the district court, the local court, the Supreme Court have all let me down.
Well,
and I've been vindicated after I lost all the court cases. My problem was, I never had any of those reports. All those reports that vindicates me became after I lost all the court cases.
Yeah.
So there should now be a full and open, independent judicial inquiry. And I should be getting compensation and a public apology from the system.
That's right.
For wrongful jailing and loss of property, etc., loss of family.
Loss of your value of your property and everything, and jailing. But you're saying there's lots of judges involved in this.
No,
there are. And we've known...
Well, you got 4 judges in that one case alone.
That one,
right?
Yes.
I dealt with 40, 50 judges, and I've been in court 40, 50 times, I think. I don't know. I've lost count.
Over the last 25 years.
Over the last 25
and,
years.
And Judge Hammond was involved in the legal transfer of those forged documents. So he was the judge.
Well, he's the same judge that told...
And Robert Koch was in the hearing as well for the Commissioner of Titles.
Judge Hammond is the same judge who was involved with the titles. He also, on my release from jail, told all my supporters, any sympathy that you receive from your supporters here in court is entirely misplaced.
Yeah, but
and you get no sympathy from me.
He's the corrupt judge that allowed them to transfer...
Yeah, but Charters was another corrupt judge.
Transfer the titles while you were in jail.
Yes.
So that's how corrupt that is.
Yes, but the whole system is corrupt.
It's not the system, it's people.
Yeah.
You know, people, you can't blame the system. Humans, identifiable humans who are involved in making decisions.
Incompetent.
Well, it's not just it's evil. It's a question of morality. It is a question
I agree.
of morality, and it doesn't matter, in a sense, what the human-made law says. In my view, it matters what the Bible teaches, and particularly the New Testament. But if you're going to act in a way that engages in cruelty against other people, and particularly citizens, deliberately hurts them, or deliberately sets out to destroy them in a sense, if you're a government-paid official, if you're a taxpayer-funded government official, and you use your position to hurt people, well, that is morally wrong. It's morally wrong. And the judgment is against you, therefore, for that. irrespective of what the human-made law is, because at the end of the time, you're going to be judged as a human being for the decisions you make and the things you say and the way you treat people. And if you engage against cruelty against people or hurt people, deliberately hurt people, engage against cruelty, and as a taxpayer-funded government employee, you deliberately engage against cruelty against people and deliberately determined to hurt them or destroy them, then that is evil to do that. It's morally wrong.
But like I said before, statute law was supposed to protect me, the victim.
It was.
Instead, statute law was reversed and protected the criminal who built on my land.
They did doing the same thing to my brother David. Didn't protect him. They ignored the statutory act that enforced protecting him. Okay, we've got a letter from Jim McGinty, 20th of June 2008, to Mr. Horst. The response from the Honourable David Malcolm is somewhat encouraging regarding the manner you are pursuing. It may be worth approaching him to ascertain whether he is able to represent you pro bono, or if he is able to do this. Perhaps he might offer another course. Well, he's not going to, because he's in charge in the law department in Notre Dame University. So, you know, hopefully this will eventually culminate in the resolution of what has undoubtedly been for you an extremely stressful series of events. This is from Troy Buswell's office when he was the Leader of Opposition in 7th of July 2008.
I met, by the way, Troy Buswell at a meeting at the Fremantle Town Hall. I told him all about my problems, and that was the response he wrote me.
Okay, so you told him your problems, and this is his response. I received a message regarding documents handed to Troy at the public forum a few weeks ago. I have followed up with Mr. Buswell on your behalf. This is somebody writing on behalf. Renee Sota, Executive Officer, Office of the Leader of Opposition. So it's from Troy Buswell's office, but it's written by an Executive Officer. Mr. Buswell will take the information that you provided to his colleagues, and if they agree, he can raise the issue when Parliament reconvenes in mid-August. We will contact you with any further progress to this matter in due course.
I've heard any more.
No follow-up, nothing.
No follow-up.
No, it's just excuses. They just do what they want, and then they tell citizens whatever they want, and they do nothing to help anybody, really. They just help themselves, that's all they do.
Now, this is the Attorney General now, Christian Porter, who was the second in charge with Robert Koch at the DPP.
Yes, it's just a big boys' club, isn't it, really?
They all
a big happy family, really.
That's right, that's right.
A very tiny, small group of people in our entire nation who are controlling everybody and destroying everyone's lives.
He was the deputy to Robert Koch at the DPP, and he is now the Attorney General.
He is, I know that. He's the member for Bateman.
Who then helped his boss, Robert Koch, to get the job as legal advisor to Mr. Barnett.
Well, there you go. Hopefully they'll all be voted out in the next election anyway. If everybody in Western Australia votes for independence,
anyway,
all voters throughout the whole state.
He did nothing.
All voters throughout the whole state of West Australia vote for independence and get new people in the Parliament, because these people are corrupt. Okay, and the letter, Dear Mr. Horst, dated the 15th of July 2008 from Christian Porter's office, and it's written by Peter Phillips, who's a research officer in his office. And he was a member for Murdoch then. Well, he's a member for Bateman now, so how's that possible? But anyway. Dispute with Fremantle Council. Our office acknowledges receipt of the following documents in relation to your matter. This is in addition to the documents you have previously provided us set out in our letter dated the 9th of July 2008. 1. Letter from the Corruption and Crime Commission to you dated 6th of June 2008. 2. Letter from Bruce Eilert to Jim McGinty dated 3rd of March 1995. 3. Orders of Judge Hammond in Chambers dated 13th of April 1995. 4. Letter from Commissioner of Titles to Frank Unmuck and Cullen dated 11th of January 1995. 5. Section 8AI, the Certificate of Consent dated 14th of February 1997, which you didn't sign. You did not sign that. Letter which was signed by the District Court but not Mr. De Horst. Letter from from Robert Cock to you dated 25th of November 1995. Have you got that letter?
I was his boss.
Have you got that letter? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've shown it to you before.
Yeah, maybe show it to me. Yeah, I think I've seen that. Letter from Robert.
But he said there was no case, no evidence, no case to answer.
Oh yeah, when you asked for it, the DPP to.
Because he had a conflict of interest.
Yeah, because he was in charge of the DPP. 7. Statement of material facts dated 25th of January 1997. 8. Fremantle Detectives Inquiry Report, which was undated. Once we have had an opportunity to review these documents and determine whether there is anything we can do to assist you, we will be in contact with you depending on the workload of our office. This may take 1 to 2 weeks. Any response? Any action from this?
No
action,
nothing whatsoever.
Nothing from Christian Porter. Okay, Parliamentary Inspector of the Corruption and Crime Commission.
Yeah, that's this gentleman is now the governor of WA.
Murray Older.
Yeah, well, he is the assistant. This letter comes from the governor,
Yep.
who was the overseer of the Corruption and Crime Commission.
And what was his name? Mr. Len Robert Smith.
No.
A letter to Mr. Horst.
I wrote to Mr. McCusker, and that was the response, or whatever.
So you wrote to Malcolm McCusker, who is
Complaining about the inaction of the Corruption and Crime Commission.
And Malcolm McCusker is the
Inspector, Parliamentary Inspector, Overseer
at the
of the
time.
Corruption and Crime
At
Commission.
the time,
He is now the Governor of WA.
he's now the Governor of Western Australia. So at the time, he was the Parliamentary Inspector of the Corruption and Crime Commission. That's Malcolm McCusker. And the letter from his office, 18th of April 2008. Dear Mr. Horst, your complaint about the Corruption and Crime Commission. I refer to the letter dated 26th of March 2008 from the Parliamentary Inspector, that's Malcolm McCusker, at the time, to you concerning your complaint about the Corruption and Crime Commission and the Commissioner, Mr. Len Robert Smith, RFC QC. I have management of your complaint and I have read all of your materials. The Parliamentary Inspector does not have the power to direct the Commission to investigate any particular complaint made to it. That's not true, is it? Well, he's the Parliamentary Inspector
Why have an inspector?
of the Corruption and Crime Commission. So he does have the power to direct it. And now he's the Governor of Western Australia, who's got more power in this state than anybody. So he has the power to order a Royal Commission, to order investigation, to have someone released from jail. He's got that power. He's got the power to have somebody ordered, or she's got the power. We've never had a woman governor. Maybe I'll be the governor one day. That person can order economic damages to be paid to somebody when there's injustice. Because that job of the governor, or at least also the Parliamentary Inspector to the Corruption and Crime Commission, has more power. And the governor has more power than them as well. Now he's the governor.
Since, if I can add this to it, since he's been the governor of WA, I again have written to him, sent him all the documents, no response.
No response. So they don't want to take action. They don't know what justice is. They have the power.
It's one huge cover-up.
Yeah, it is a cover-up. But the Bible says, the New Testament says, in Romans chapter 13, that God put the government there. And the government is there, the politicians are there, and the Governor-General and Parliamentary Inspectors of the Corruption and Crime Commission are there for the good of the citizen, for the good of the citizen. They're there for the good of the citizen, and they don't use it for good. They use their power for evil. He said, Parliamentary Inspector does not have the power to direct the Commission to investigate any particular complaint made to it, nor can the Parliamentary Inspector unilaterally investigate a complaint rejected by the Commission. Well, that's not true, because they have more power than anybody. He's got a lot of power, that inspector. It remains for you to persuade the Commission to accept your complaint and to make the investigation you require of it.
Go to the corruption with a gun and say, I want you to investigate my case. I mean, really. Well, why have an inspector?
That's right. Inspector is there to do that.
Everybody let me down.
I understand that this is not the response you wish to receive from any office, however, it is the reality of the bounds of the jurisdiction of the parliamentary. That's a lie. That parliamentary inspector, under the legislation, has got the authority to order an investigation. And I would say it has the power to order a royal commission. You know, the politicians have the power to order a royal commission. The parliamentary inspector has the power to order a royal commission, or at least suggest it, and the governor of West Australia certainly has the power to order a royal commission. Under section 16 of the Supreme Court Rules 1971, the head of the Supreme Court, or a Supreme Court judge, has the power to order a royal commission. They have enormous powers to order investigations or royal commissions or investigations. So hang on, that's signed by Murray Alder, the principal legal officer. Okay. So Malcolm McCusker, I'm sorry, these people don't use their power for good for the citizens of Western Australia. They don't. They do not use their power for good. They use it for evil. And he's a very wealthy man, and the Bible says the love of money is the source of all kinds of evil. Well, you can shoot me down or put me on a cross or whatever you want to do, but the fact is, God in heaven, the God of the Bible, is going to judge every human being for what they do in life and say in life. And the truth of the matter is, you are going to be judged by the God of the Bible. Every single one of you. Okay, article by Jim Kelly, Sunday Times, 27th of February 2005. A Fremantle City Council officer and two former staff members could face charges over their involvement in a bungled strata development. In a letter to Mr. Horst, Detective Sergeant Trevor Troy said his report would be reviewed by the Director of Public Prosecutions to determine if there was grounds for charges. But the Director of Public Prosecutions was Robert Koch.
He stopped it.
And he stopped any sort of
because of a conflict of interest.
He had a conflict of interest, absolutely. Well, they've all got a conflict of interest because they all just cover for each other. That's what they do.
It's been one huge cover-up, collusion.
One big corrupt team, people.
I've been fighting. It's like fighting the whole world. You know, I had to fight first the builder, then the council. Now I've got to fight the WA government.
Yeah.
And every government agency seems to be in collusion with one another.
To destroy freedom, to destroy your rights.
To deny people justice.
To deny people,
because
citizens justice.
I am a great embarrassment to the system.
Yeah, but it's not even the system.
Because I'm exposing corruption.
But we're talking about identifiable people. There's no point blaming us.
And what I have in front of me here, the transfers, those were created whilst I was in jail. Transfer of land, and I read, I, Jan de Horst, the registered proprietor of Lot 1 on the strata plan.
Got the originals?
I'm sorry?
Got the originals? We're going to take photos of the